Hey there, friend. It's Hector here, the Kettlebell Coach. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to use the performance progression training system to build a stronger upper body, particularly with the kettlebell press and the clean and press. And we're going to break this down into 4 steps. So if you're just now joining us for this series, this is part 2 of a 4-part series on upstream thinking and how to use upstream thinking to build a stronger, leaner, and more capable body before exercise even begins. So, for context, if you're just now joining us, watch the first video in this series so that way you have a good understanding of what it is that we're talking about. So back in 2022, I received a message from one of my colleagues, shout out to Jason Marshall, and it was a video of him pressing a pair of 48 kilo bells, i.e. the double beast. This is often like the coveted strength feat in the kettlebell space is pressing the beast, let alone pressing double beast. And he told me, he said this was the last time that he attempted this was over 15 years ago, at his level 1 RKC certification around 2007. So at that time, the RKC was the gold standard of kettlebell education around the globe. Today, that is Strong First. And I personally hit my own first double beast press around 2014. And that's the context. That's the background and the reason of for this video in this video series. So if you're new to kettlebells and you have caught that kettlebell bug, but now you're interested in learning how to use kettlebells to build upper body strength, to build a bigger and a stronger kettlebell press, if that's you, then this video and this video series is for you. And even if you're an advanced user and maybe you're chasing that half body weight press or that coveted beast or even double beast press, this video and video series will be for you as well. The question you may be asking yourself is, well, why should I be interested in building a big press? And I say big in quotations because big is obviously relative, right? For one guy, a big press is moving up to the 24 kilo, right? Depending on our body weight. For another, it's nailing that half body weight press. So here are 5 reasons just off the top of my head. Number 1, it feels pretty dang good to put something heavy over your head. So I think that one's pretty self-explanatory, a little stroke of the ego there. The second is the volume which goes into building a bigger press and a stronger press allows you to build lifelong strength, health, longevity, and ultimately to become a more useful person. What do they say? Like stronger people are more useful, stronger people are harder to kill. Like you hear these funny sayings. So not only is it fun to put things overhead, but if we're talking health, longevity, capability, building a strong upper body is essential. Number 3, building a stronger press opens up opportunities for building muscle in the right places. So if you have a desire to build strength and put on some muscle, and why would we want to put on muscle? Well, muscle helps us maintain a good body weight. It helps keep our metabolism up, makes us look good. It helps us to create more power, more force. So building muscle is essential, especially as we get in those wiser years, if you know what I mean. We get into those wiser years, having muscle mass is essential. So if you want to put muscle in the right places, in the traps, the shoulders, the forearms, biceps, triceps, pecs, essentially all the places that the ladies, i.e. probably your wife, likes to touch, rub, grab, that kind of thing, that's a pretty good reason to want to build muscle mass and upper body strength. And in my opinion, number 4, next to the deadlift, the kettlebell press is the first kettlebell exercise that you should learn, not the kettlebell swing. I'll get into why in another video, but it's the first exercise next to the deadlift that I feel beginners, and even again, if you're advanced, but particularly if you're a beginner, it's the first exercise that you should be learning, barring you don't have any shoulder limitations. And number 5, another reason to build a bigger press is it allows you to navigate the performance progression training pyramid. So I talked about this in my last video. I talked about what the system looks like on a 30K foot view and what it looks like on a 5K foot view. So again, if you look at it here from the 30,000 foot view, we've got building strength endurance, we've got building muscle mass, i.e. hypertrophy, then we've got maximal strength training, and then we've got power training. And as you can see, there's a specific performance progression to navigate this pyramid. So let's talk about using the kettlebell press in this context of this video. So number one, strength stability. So you want to run a strength stability cycle that would be using one kettlebell. So using one kettlebell, this would load your body asymmetrically. And what that does is creates and allows you to build cross body stability. So ultimately, this is the foundation of your work, is building your strength endurance, building your strength stability by using one kettlebell. Then we get into strength endurance. This is building volume and leveraging tactics like rest pause. I'll get more into detail about rest pause is in another video, but using tactics like rest pause. And it's a tactic that we use with our students that works very well in our coaching program. And what this allows us to do is this allows us to build strength endurance and allows us to build our skill without having to go up a weight. Remember, I talked about going up a weight is something that you need to earn, right? You need to earn that training. And one of our students that went through this particular tactic of rest pause, he went from pressing a 32 kilogram. It was like, I want to say it was his 1 RM. And within about 8 weeks, he turned it into a 7 rep max just by following this strategy of rest pause. Then if we look at muscle building, with enough volume underneath our belt, we create an environment to pack on muscle size, right? So that way you can, like I mentioned before, support your metabolism, possess a more capable body, build a wider base of maximum strength, and look like you work out, right? Those are all great perks of building muscle mass. If you look at the next step in the performance progression, we've got maximum strength training. This is where you leverage the muscle that you've built from the previous cycle and you introduce double kettlebell training. So this is where we double the load, which means double the results in the same or less time, just by changing the nature of the load. Then at the top of that pyramid, that's power endurance. This is where we gain access to exercises like the long cycle clean and press, where we're performing a clean in between each press. This is known as the long cycle clean and press. And as I mentioned in the last video, most people unknowingly start at that top of that pyramid. We start with power movements. Maybe we pattern the hip hinge or the deadlift for a few reps, but then before the end of the week, we're already doing swings and we're already doing snatches. Like we're jumping too far ahead. And oftentimes as our body breaks down because we're doing things that we haven't built the base for, we have to back up and pretty much start over. So that leads to wasted time, wasted energy, money, you name it. And so you can see why it's important to have a performance progression training system, some kind of process to follow. And you can see how you could possibly shoot yourself in the foot by training backwards, right? So not only do we train backwards, as I mentioned in the last post, on a macro level, the performance progression, but we also train backwards on that micro level as well. So if we look at performance progression training in action, here are the 4 steps to building that stronger upper body and ultimately building a bigger press. So once you understand the performance progression pyramid, you can start to build that bigger press or whatever fitness goal it is that you have. Maybe you couldn't care less of building a bigger press. Maybe you want to build a bigger squat. Maybe you want to run a marathon, like whatever that is for you. Understanding this performance progression system is essential. So the first step, again, within the context of building a stronger and bigger kettlebell press, one of the first steps you want to do is you want to follow an accumulation cycle. And this is where we build volume across the performance progression pyramid. And a very common tactic to do this is with linear loading. So example would be building volume with, the 32 and just building volume, let's say 32 or 24 kilo, and you begin to add volume and weight to your previous numbers. So if the previous week you did, 5 sets of 5, the next week you'd go up to 6 sets of 5, and you just slowly load this weight in a linear fashion. And it works very well. It's not uncommon to see beginners go from pressing a 16 kilogram bell to pressing a 32 kilogram bell within their first year of strength training. But here's where the problem lies: is you can't keep adding weight and volume indefinitely. You can't stay in one particular stage of the performance progression pyramid for too long, because once you squeezed all the juice from those newbie gains, you'll eventually hit the point of diminished returns. And that leads to step 2. So we can't stay in with one particular weight, indefinitely. If we can't keep adding weight indefinitely, the next step is to distribute volume across multiple intensity zones. So there are 5 particular intensity zones. We've got 50 to 60%, and this is all 50 to 60% of your 1 rep max. So 50 to 60%, 61 to 70, 71 to 80, 81 to 90, and then 91 to 100% zones of intensity. And depending on the kettlebells you have available, we want the average intensity to range between 67 and 77%, and even anywhere from 75 to 81%. Why? Because what we know based on the data and experience is strength, long-term strength is built in the 75 to 80% zones of intensity of 1 rep maximum. So let's say you can press a 40-kilogram kettlebell. The majority of your volume, the big bulk of your volume, will be somewhere around 32 kilos and 36 kilos. It will be shared there, but the peak of that, the bell curve of that volume share will be right in this 71 to 80%. If our one rep max is 40 kilos, then a big bulk of that volume will be with 32. And we'll also have some 36 kilo work thrown in, maybe some 28 kilo work thrown in from time to time, touching that 40 kilo from time to time. So this is knowing how to spread your volume across those zones. And when you get that right, the reason why this is important is because when you understand how to share volume across these zones, you're going to come back fresher. You're going to be stronger than previous training sessions. This is how I was able to, I did an experiment here on the channel where I deadlifted a barbell every single day. I want to say for 92 days. I think 92 days total. And I did it without burning out. I did it without fatiguing. And what we know about barbell deadlifting, anytime you have a 1 rep maximum, you're going to want to take a few weeks off from the weight, depending on how taxing that was in the body. You're going to want to rest 2 weeks, 4 weeks from the deadlift. I was back to deadlifting the very next day, 500 plus pounds, for repetitions. How I was able to do that? By varying the intensity on a day-to-day, week-to-week, and month-to-month basis. And so this allows you to train for the long haul. The third step is a peak cycle. So after 4 to 8 weeks of accumulating volume, once you've accumulated volume, you can run a 4-week peak cycle to boost, and you can test your strength. The key to this cycle is to make sure that your average intensity from the previous cycle increases by 1 to 5%. So if your average intensity, remember I talked about you want the majority of that weight to be in that 71 to 80%. Let's say the average was 75%. The average weight that you lifted among all the weights and all the volume that you lifted, let's say it was 75%. Well, we would want to increase that intensity by shifting more of that volume towards the heavier weights to get that average percentage, that average intensity to bump up by 1 to 5%. And the fourth step is what we call transition or synergy phase. As I've said ad nauseum, recovery is essential. So in this fourth step, this is not only where we clean up asymmetries and we solidify the gains over the previous cycle. This is also where we address mobility, flexibility. This is where we do prep work for the next training phase. So in the context of, let's say we're doing a double kettlebell press program, well, for a transition or a synergy phase, we would want to shift back down to single kettlebell work, change the nature of the load, work on asymmetries, because sometimes we can develop bad habits and compensations because we're loaded symmetrically. So whenever we shift down to single kettlebell work, we can address a lot of those potential limitations that could have occurred. We can address mobility, flexibility work, all that prepares us for the next cycle. So these are the 4 steps that I've been following in my own practice. These are the exact same 4 steps we've been taking through our students at the Hardstock Kettlebell Club for the last 14 plus years. And so if you're a beginner and you want to learn how to use the performance progression training system to meet your specific goals and to build a stronger upper body and to take your kettlebell press to the next level, this is exactly what I'm going to be breaking down for you over the course of the next couple of videos. I'm going to show you how you can get your hands on a step-by-step process and how to do it at the end of this upstream strength strategy series. But for now, I appreciate you watching. If you're training the kettlebell press, let me know in the comments. Let me know what your training program looks like right now. If you're having a hard time improving your press, let me know that in the comments as well. And let me know how you're liking this video series, if this is helping you out. That's all I got for you today. If this video was helpful, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, turn on notifications for the next video in this series, and I'll see you on the next episode. Peace.